Welcome to Study Session 8. Introduction. Professionally, there are 3 stages in social casework, and each of these stages leads to the other. There is the beginning stage of phase part, of which we have discussed in Lecture 7. There is a middle stage of phase, also known as working section, which this lecture is going to address, and the ending phase or stage which comes after this lecture. The middle phase is as important as the other phases, if not more, but the 3 phases are treated as equally important. Objectives. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to explain processes involved in middle phase of casework practice. Pretest. What is middle phase in social casework? 2. How important is middle phase in social casework to general social work practice? Content. Middle phase in social casework is a stage in the planned intervention whereby the social worker is rigorously digging into the client's problem with the sole aim of finding solution to it. This is a phase of data gathering and assessment of the client and the problem. Some steps are taken in this respect. These steps are: 1. Engagement. 2. Assessment. 3. Planning. 4. Implementation. 5. Evaluation. 6. Termination. And 7. Follow-up. 1. Engagement. Engagement is the initial period the social worker orients himself or herself to the problem of the client and builds or establishes a worker-client relationship through adequate communication. The most important activity here is the establishment of relationship, without which no result will be achieved. Your words, verbal communication, and your action, non-verbal communication, can act to engage the client and other stakeholders in the helping process. Non-verbal communication includes gestures, facial expressions, posture, tone of voice, and vocal sounds other than words. The social worker's ability to convey warmth, empathy, and genuineness will enhance engagement. Likewise, how the social worker introduces himself or herself and arranges an initial meeting settings affects the engagement process. Other engagement skills include alleviating initial client anxiety and introducing social workers' purpose and role. 2. Assessment. Assessment in social work is the differential, individualized, and evaluation of problems, people, and situations and of their interrelations to serve as a sound basis for differential helping intervention. Siporin, 1975. Assessment is also defined as knowing, understanding, evaluating, individualizing, or figuring out. Mayer, 1995. Therefore, assessment is the investigation and determination of variables affecting an identified problem or issue as viewed from different perspectives. In the first place, assessment refers to gathering relevant information about the problem so that decision can be made about what to do to solve it. Secondly, assessment can involve preparation for intervention at any level of practice. There are 4 sub-steps in assessment. A. Identify your client. B. Assess the client in situation. C. Cite information about client problems and needs. D. Identify client strengths. A. Identify your client. The social worker must determine who the client is. The social worker must know the client and determine if the client is the only one who needs help or the entire family. The social worker must know whether the client is voluntary or involuntary. B. Assess the client and situation. The social worker must be able to identify the pertinent issues and problems. How the social worker intervenes is based on the information he or she has and on the judgment made from information gathered. C. Cite information about clients' problems and needs. The social worker is expected to professionally put all information about the client's problems and needs together and begin help. Help could be in form of referral where need be. For instance, a client with social and medical problems and needs will have to visit both the social welfare office and the hospital. Such a case could be a teenage pregnancy with truncation of educational career of the teenager. The case is both social and medical. The medical aspect is the care of the pregnancy. D. Identify client strengths. The professional social worker should identify those strengths in the client or within the client that could enhance early and positive recovery. Such strength could be the emotional stability of the client, which is a strong point in social work intervention. Every client has some measure of strength in him or her, and it is left for the social worker to identify and utilize it for the sole purpose of restoration to social functioning of the client. Once the client's strengths are identified, the social worker follows up with plans for intervention. 3. Planning. Planning follows assessment in problem-solving process. While assessment sets the stage for the intervention, planning specifies what should be done. Planning in social casework involves 8 sub-steps. A. Work with the client. B. Prioritize problems. C. Translate problems into needs. D. Evaluate levels of intervention for each need. E. Establish goals. F. Specify objectives. G. Specify action steps. H. Formalize a contract. A. Work with the client. The client must be involved in problem definition and must agree as to which problems merit attention. The social worker must take advantage of the client's strengths. B. Prioritize problems. Both the client and the social worker must agree on what or which problems are most significant than requires help. The social worker must be able to analyze the problems critically in a professional manner. C. Translate problems into needs. The clients come to social workers because they are suffering from problems. The social workers must, therefore, establish what the clients need to solve the problems. The social worker's approach to the situation will determine the type of solution to the problem. The focus should be on restoring the client to social functioning. D. Evaluate levels of intervention. The social worker and the client must look at the problem together with the proposed or suggested solutions so as to the problem to jointly determine which of these solutions will be best address the problem. Also, the social worker should be able to segment this intervention into levels that are easily followed up and easily evaluated. E. Establish goals. The social worker must know what is expected from a social problem brought to him or her. The goal of social casework is to restore clients back to social functioning. Every effort must be made to achieve this. F. Specify objectives. The social workers and the client must agree on specific objectives to be made or achieved from whatever levels of intervention being addressed. These objectives must be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. It helps the service. G. Specify action steps. These steps are verifiable and must determine that the need exists in the first place. The social worker now seeks support for the intervention, usually from stakeholders, and starts to intervene. H. Formalize a contract. It is pertinent that relationship contract must be built to allow for any meaningful social work intervention in clients' issues. Contracts are used to solidify the agreements. Social casework contract is between the social worker and the client, and it is only meant for relationship building to solve the client's problems and needs. Study session summary. There are major stages or phases in social casework that are important to practice, and these are the beginning stage or phase, the middle stage or phase, and the ending stage of phase. These phases are all important to social casework practice. The middle phase has been treated here. This phase is more or less the activity or implementation stage where the client receives help from the social worker. In this phase, the social worker engages the client in a worker-client relationships. The social worker assesses the client's problems and needs and plans on how to begin social work help. The main goal of social casework process is the restoration to social functioning of the client. End of study session 8. Thank you for listening.